while her virtuous husband stays home to watch the kids commences. And I think I'm supposed to gather from all the carefully placed headlines that she's a partier and thus a bad mom, while he is the hero dad making sacrifices. But no one seems to question why he, at 30, decided to marry a 23-year-old and thought she'd suddenly turn into a trad wife. Right there, we saw a lot of people bring up their age. He was 29, she was 23 when they got married. When they started dating, he was 27, she was 20. And so you have people saying things like trying to paint her as a bad mother while he drinks on stage and parties himself. You're the one who married a girl in her early 20s as a 30-year-old. Like, what the fuck? She gave up her life in the UK to live with him and start a family, and now he's trying to ruin her rep. Not on my watch. Others also just don't believe the Sophie parties too much line, because in the past, the couple has repeatedly talked about what a homebody she is. Though with all of this, notably while everyone else is fighting online, Joe and Sophie put out a statement seemingly trying to combat some of the backlash, with them both writing, or at the very least posting on Instagram, that this divorce is mutual, and adding there are many speculative narratives as to why, but truly, this is a united decision, and we sincerely hope that everyone can respect our wishes for privacy for us and our children. Though notably, in the hours since that post, we have more TMZ headlines that again work to make Sophie look like the problem. And so it becomes this question of like, what is actually happening? Not necessarily in their marriage, right? That's their own private personal thing. But, you know, are people right in assuming Joe Jonas's PR team just working overtime? Or is someone close to them actually leaking this information, true or not? Or do you have these outlets just baselessly saying things because they're engagement farming? Or do they just want their chunk of flesh no matter who it hurts? Because that's also an important thing to remember. The people involved here are real people. They're not just celebrities, they are real people, and there are kids involved. So I will ask, what are your thoughts regarding how all of this is played out online? And then the MrBeast Creator League scandal just got a lot messier. We talked about the backlash and controversy earlier this week with a big esports tournament being put on by eFuse. MrBeast announcing it to 60+ million people and counting in one of his videos, even though he wasn't actually part of the tournament. Though there were plenty of other big names involved, including iShowSpeed, Bella Porch, Vinny Hacker, CDog VA, and OTK. You know, with Creator League, people could buy Creator League community passes to interact with the tournament and join their favorite streamer's team. But then the backlash was incredibly swift when it got reported that these passes were actually secretly NFTs, which then resulted in many creators saying they had no clue NFTs or blockchain tech was involved in this. So you saw CDog VA dropping out, OTK also saying they had to look into the matter once the NFT news broke. We also saw MrBeast getting some heat, people saying he was misleadingly promoting NFTs. But the first big update here is that eFuse has since released a statement clarifying that yes, there is blockchain tech involved, but no, these passes are not NFTs, saying near blockchain is being used to validate data and log information relating to the community passes. All passes are purchased in USD, and therefore no cryptocurrency is being purchased. Additionally, the company states the Creator League community passes are not considered NFTs nor a token launch because they had no transfer utility, which means there is no ability to resell. And Sean Pavel, the vice president of engineering for eFuse, also saying, we apologize for not intentionally disclosing the blockchain's limited use, but emphasizing there once again that the passes were not NFTs. So notably, this wasn't the only big issue happening behind the scenes over at eFuse, because yesterday you also had tons of employees saying they had been let go by the company, and the company even confirming to Exerto that it had laid off 30% of its workforce across several departments. And all of that coming with the news that Creator League has now been postponed as eFuse deals with some internal restructuring, with CEO Matthew Benson telling Forbes, we remain excited about the Creator League and will take some time to reflect on community feedback and refine its structure. As with all ambitious projects, the path toward innovation is winding. We're prepared to keep learning and pushing gaming forward. And now, anyone who purchased a Creator Community Pass can get a refund. Though the rest of the situation is kind of unclear, right? Did anyone else actually officially leave the league? Is everyone originally involved still going to be there? Is there going to be a slate of new creators? We'll have to wait to see. And then, if someone on the internet tells you to put something into your mouth, do not do it. And as it turns out, the One Chip Challenge is no exception. Right back in August of 2022, the chip brand Pocky relaunched its promotion for the 6th year in a row, with it encouraging people to film themselves eating a single individually wrapped, absurdly spicy tortilla chip seasoned with 2 of the world's hottest peppers, the Carolina Reaper and the Scorpion Chili Pepper. And then you're supposed to hold out as long as possible without drinking or eating anything to neutralize the pain. Keeping in mind, of course, that the package's warning label read, keep out of reach of children. You know, for the most part, people just had a good time kind of torturing themselves for the amusement of their audience or their friends, with creators and professional overreactors like iShowSpeed taking part as well.
It's not.
911, what's your emergency?
I can't breathe!
But at the same time, we've also seen cases of the challenge going wrong, especially with teens. Like in California, several students got sick after eating the chip, prompting the school district to warn parents about it. Or examples like in Georgia, where paramedics had to treat a high school student who tried the challenge last November. Now, it's being reported that the chip may have actually taken its first life. And that's because reportedly in Massachusetts, a 14-year-old boy was given this chip by a classmate at his high school, causing him to have an intense stomachache. That prompting the nurse to send him home, where his brother later found him unconscious. So they end up rushing him to the ER, but there he was pronounced dead. And so now the Massachusetts medical examiner is performing an autopsy to determine the cause of death. So while there are a million reports out there, officially it is still uncertain whether the chip was responsible. But you have the boy's family claiming it was the chip that killed him just hours later, saying that he was a healthy basketball player with no known allergies or preconditions. So now not only are they sounding the alarm about this social media challenge, they're also calling for the chip to be removed from store shelves. With the National Capital Poison Center telling CBS that capsaicin, an ingredient in the chip, typically causes mouth and throat pain, but it can also lead to more serious issues like heart attacks and esophageal damage. So I guess while we wait to see the results of the autopsy, at the very least, I'll just say be safe out there. And then lifeguards right now are having to work around the clock to rescue people up and down the East Coast from getting swallowed up by the Atlantic Ocean. Right? And that's because remnants of hurricanes Franklin and Idalia churned up especially powerful riptides that have been sucking people out to sea. And in fact, just over the holiday weekend, 14 people died in swimming and boating accidents, partly for that reason. And while luckily many rescue efforts have brought people back in safely to shore, others have ended in tragedy. Like in New Jersey, lifeguards and beachgoers formed a human chain to try and save a swimmer caught in a riptide, but the person still drowned. And for Gabe McCabe, a man that was dragged out by a riptide off Long Beach Island on Sunday, he thought he was going to die too, with him telling ABC, "I kept being pulled down and down and down." But then, lucky for him, Stephen Hauser, a teacher, surfer, and ex-Marine, saw him struggling to fight the current from atop his boogie board a distance away. And so Steve paddles over like an absolute bamf and saves this man's life.
There you go. Right behind you. We're gonna ride this together. All right. Good. Hold on.
With him then making it back to shore, Gabe thanking him profusely, and Steve later saying,
"There was no way in heck I was letting him go. Thank God I got to him at the right time, because I don't think he had much longer."
Also, since we're on this topic, in case any of you actually find yourself stuck in a riptide, this is going to be easier to say than do. The worst thing that you can do is panic and try and swim towards shore. That current will pull you out faster than you can swim. Instead, it's recommended you swim parallel to the shore or just wait it out until you naturally float out of the riptide. So boom. Now you know, and statistically, 1 to 3 of you will now be saved from death, and you'll owe me a favor. Thank you, and you're welcome. And then, not everyone has the time or the desire to cook, but everyone loves good food. And eating out every night is so expensive. So imagine award-winning chef's meals delivered directly to your door. Because that's not wishful thinking. That's exactly what the sponsor of today's show, Cook Unity, does. Cook Unity is the first chef-to-you meal delivery service made up of a group of diversely talented chefs who believe that great food should be for everyone. I'm talking meals you'd find in restaurants delivered to you fully cooked, and you just heat them up. Like, oh my gosh, the grilled Asian hanger steak was so tender and flavorful, not to mention how great the charred broccolini was. Like, hats off to Chef Stacy Barang for that one. Also, possibly my new favorite person, Chef Tony Perez. Thank you for the Parmesan chicken tenders my kids devoured. Like, I really don't want to undersell this. My life is now like 10 times easier when it comes to feeding the kids when I'm exhausted. And with an ever-changing menu, Cook Unity offers a range of meals to fit most dietary preferences, and the subscription is super flexible, making it easy to pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. And another cool thing about the service is that they text you a heads up before they deliver the meal, so you can be sure someone's around to accept them. So y'all just go to cookunity.com/DeFranco or click the link in my description and use code DeFranco50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try them out for yourself. And then prisoners are rebelling right now to keep from getting literally cooked alive at Minnesota's Stillwater prison. Reportedly on Sunday morning, over 100 inmates refused to return to their cells from the area where they make phone calls and take showers, and it caused the facility to go on lockdown. And that's because the heat has gotten just so intolerable that they couldn't survive it anymore, with one of them explaining.
It got to a point now where we decided to take a peaceful protest and take a stand for our rights and say, listen, we ain't taking it no more.
The prison sits about 25 miles east of Minneapolis, which was put under a heat advisory for temperatures nearing 100 degrees. And a key thing, Stillwater is one of 9 prisons in Minnesota that still lack facility-wide air conditioning. And while these inmates have been dealing with the heat all summer, the past several days were especially bad because the prison is already short 50 officers and even more left for the holiday weekend. So to make up for that staffing shortage, inmates were then forced to stay in their cells for even longer periods without AC. And then to make the situation even worse, they claim that the drinking water isn't clean. So you have a spokesperson for them saying yesterday,
the way that the guys have water is they take the ice from the ice machine and they take a sock and put it over a cup and they filter the ice water to try to collect some of the contaminations that's running through the pipes. This building here is 109 years old.
We have officials saying the protest was resolved peacefully later that day and no injuries were reported. But as we've talked about recently on this show, prisons across the country are basically baking their inmates in triple-digit temperatures. And climate change has just been making it worse every year. Right, by one count, 44 states do not have air conditioning in all their prisons, and 10 of them are in the South. And so it's very likely we're going to see more of these protests coming not just from advocates on the outside, but inmates on the inside as well. And then the war against Airbnb in New York City is officially underway. And that's because after city residents begged for years, New York City has officially started cracking down on short-term rentals, with as of yesterday a new set of regulations called Local Law 18 going into effect, and that heavily beefing up the city's existing rules, with one of the biggest changes being requiring short-term landlords to register with the city. And a city official saying, registration creates a clear path for hosts who follow the city's long-standing laws and protect travelers from illegal and unsafe accommodations while ending the proliferation of illegal short-term rentals. Other rules require that legal short-term rentals cannot host more than 2 people, and that the host has to live inside the unit as well and be present when guests are there. Additionally, guests must have access to the entire home.